Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dat Confessional. It is Tuesday night, and that means we're going to talk some Saints football. But we've got good Saints football to talk about because we're coming up a win, a very unexpected win, no matter who you ask, against the Seattle Seahawks. I think everybody really expected us to go in and lose this game, but we surprised a lot of people, myself included. You know, I was one of the proponents saying that this is one of the games where I did not expect to win. And even in my pre-game, because I posted on Twitter before the game prediction, I had us losing. And I did a poll, though, on Twitter. Saints fans, over half of y'all expected the Saints to win by 1 to 6 points. So y'all called it. Y'all got it right. I missed it. But in my defense, I think this is a game that most people weren't expecting New Orleans to pull off. They figured that we could probably beat Kansas City and San Francisco, but lose to the Seattles and the Denvers. So it's something we'll be talking about a lot tonight. We're also going to talk about the trade deadline, which has now passed. We're going to talk about the trades that did and did not happen around the NFL, how they affect New Orleans, some players that got picked up that used to be New Orleans Saints who are now with other teams. I know I mentioned at least one of those on Twitter. And then we will also talk about the upcoming game against the 49ers, which is an away game. And we know this team has played a little differently away. Some cases that's been better. Some cases not so much. But we will hit on that tonight. Brian Bienemy will be joining me as always. But we will also have John Hendricks from the Canal Street Chronicles, as well as Patrick Elliott from Who Dat Warriors. Both of these guys are friends of the show and friends of my own for quite some time now. So I'm pretty excited to have them on. And we're just going to talk a little bit of everything, especially Mark Ingram getting benched. We will hit on that pretty hard. But before we get into all that, we are going to go over just a quick recap of the game. We'll pull out some box stats, the overall, and just fill everybody in while we wait for Brian to hop in on the call. He can sometimes take a few minutes getting here. That's fine. We all know how that goes. So the New Orleans Saints did win a home game against the Seattle Seahawks this past Sunday, 25-20. Saw Drew Brees throw 27-35 for 265 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, finishing with a 107.4 rating. Mark Ingram had an early fumble in the first quarter. We'll get into that a lot later, but cost him his carries for the game. They brought in Tim Hightower, and man, did Tim Hightower shine, carrying 26 carries for 102 yards, right under a 4 average. No TDs, but he was certainly big, had a big 28-yard run, set up some real nice drives, and definitely solidified the fact that he deserves more carries moving forward. And Coach came in after the game saying that we are going to run a more split back type, running back by committee type offense going into the future, which is something the Saints are surely used to having. But moving on, Michael Thomas and Willie Snead both led the team with 6 receptions each. Michael Thomas had 6 catches on 63 yards, and Willie Snead had 6 for 56. Brandon Cooks caught the lone touchdown thrown by Drew Brees. He ended the day with 4 receptions, 44 yards, and that score on 6 targets. Brandon Coleman, Kobe Fleener, John Kuhn, Travaris Cadet, Josh Hill, and Tim Hightower round out the rest of the receivers for Drew Brees. That is a total of 9. And we'll move on to defense. Jarris Byrd was your leading tackler of this game. And say what you will about Byrd. The rough seasons he's had in New Orleans, the overpaid hype, all of this. He had a pretty solid game here this past Sunday against the Seattle offense. Craig Robertson followed up with 9 tackles. Ken Crawley with 6. And then Nate Stupar, only 5 tackles, but came up with a very critical interception. He would drop back in zone coverage, read Russell Wilson's eyes, jumped in front of the route, and made a really nice play. Only 1 sack, and that was by Paul Kruger, but guys like Kenny Vaccaro definitely got some good pressure. Kenny Vaccaro registered, and Cameron Jordan, too. I don't need to forget his name. Cameron Jordan registered a quarterback hit. Nick Fairley had some decent pressure up the middle. Not a lot of sacks against a guy like Russell Wilson. You don't expect to get a lot on him. But they did pretty well, in my opinion, considering. Yeah, there could have been some moments that were better, but we did hold Russell Wilson to 253 yards total with 1 interception and no touchdown. I think for the New Orleans Saints, that's got to be the key, is limiting touchdowns. The Saints defense is going to give up yards. They just are. We do not have a top 15, top 10, top 5 defense, and I think the Saints fans are okay with that. We're understanding that that's where we're at. In reality, we need to finish with a top 20 defense. And that's it for this offense to have what it needs to succeed and keep pushing along. And we've said that for several years now, but the potential for that is actually there this year. It's getting there. That has been the hurdle. And that's due to injuries and several other problems. But let's hit on this next one. The team did hold the Seattle Seahawks to under 100 yards rushing as a team, but they did average 4.4 yards a carry. They only ran 17 times, with Christine Michael being the lead back in that situation, 10 carries for 40 yards. Now, they did have some holes, but Saints managed to play with a lead for the most part. They really, at halftime, they were trailing 14-13. However, once the second half came in, New Orleans, for the most part, really had that, especially the fourth quarter. They dominated the entire fourth quarter. So it was not as close as it would look on the scoreboard. And honestly, in the first half, the Saints had every number against the Seahawks. They knew exactly what was coming at them. They played very well. And one of those touchdowns was due to the Mark Ingram fumble, which led directly to a defensive touchdown. So the defense only gave up 1 offensive score to Seattle. That's a win. And then did not give up any other touchdowns the rest of the game. Gave up 2 field goals in the second half. And then just a little to throw this out there, in case anybody was wondering, Jimmy Graham, you might not have known, former New Orleans Saints All-Pro tight end, finished the day with 3 catches on 5 targets for 34 yards. It was his worst performance since week 1 for the Seattle Seahawks. What can you say? Not many Saints fans are going to be upset about that one. Jimmy Graham then would go and leave the field and didn't say anything. Roman Harper had to chase him down to give him a hug. So it's nice to know that Jimmy Graham is the same old Jimmy Graham who gets a little salty at times, but he's a competitor. And, what are you going to say about that? Can't knock the guy for being a competitor, can we? Well, maybe we can, but we're not going to. I respect him. In some ways I miss him. Kobe Fleener is not Jimmy Graham as much as we like to throw down on Jimmy. I miss having that level of competition, if you will, at tight end. He's such a mismatch, but the Saints have certainly made do. Just replying to a post on Facebook real quick, guys. Sorry. But yeah, how can you really be upset with how this offense has performed? We now have, in my opinion, especially in the Sean Payton era for sure, the best 3 receiver set we've ever had. And when I say that is not to say that necessarily Thomas is better than Colston yet, which he might have the potential to be. Not that, Snead is better than a Lance Moore yet, which that is an argument that could be made. They're very close in their skill set and what they were able to do. But the fact that the Saints have such complete players at all 3 receiver positions, for those of you who are football fans but haven't either had the time or played the game, to study the different positions. Wide receiver is made up 3 different position types. You have a split end, which is your split out wide guy, generally your number 1 receiver, bigger guy over 6 foot, usually got about 200 pounds on him, lines up right on the line of scrimmage. And that's who you're usually going to see getting press covered by a corner, especially like a Richard Sherman type. Well, Michael Thomas is that. Then second, you have what's called a flanker, usually a smaller receiver. He plays off the line of scrimmage, meaning he is not up on the line. You can't get press coverage on him if you are a corner, and that extra speed helps them break into the routes where their body might not allow them to if they were getting pressed. So whereas the split end size helps them get into their routes like slants and curls and ins and outs, the speed of the flanker allows them to get into their routes. And then third, you have the slot receiver, who's a big movement guy. You're usually going to see them doing shallow to intermediate routes, really finding the holes in the defense. They're usually not going to be as good as your other 2, but they're able to make plays. And what we have in those 3 guys is, there's no other word to really describe them for me except for the word complete. They are a complete wide receiver unit. And Saints fans, you should really be thankful that we've got these guys. I really can't stress enough that units like this are pretty rare to come about. Even if you look at the Saints Super Bowl team, they did not have a wide receiver group that was this talented in all aspects. And I'm not knocking guys like Devery Henderson or Robert Meacham or Marcus Colson or Lance Moore, any of those guys. I'm really not. But in talent per talent, position by position, this is the most complete wide receiver group we've ever had. And even guys like Brandon Coleman are stepping up and providing for the team. And just to have that is huge. And let's just pull up some stats, because right now you have 3 Saints wide receivers on pace for 1,000 or more yards. 3 of them. And that would be Cooks, Thomas, and Snead. All of them are averaging to a point to where, if things continue, we'll be looking at the New Orleans Saints having 3,000-yard receivers. That is just, it just gets me giddy and excited. Now, with that, also, not only that, add a little bonus to it, Michael Thomas is on pace for 16 receiving plays, of 20 yards or more. Brandon Cooks is on pace for 9, and Willie Snead is on pace for 10. Now, you would expect Cooks should probably have that higher amount, him being the deep ball guy, but either way, to have all those guys averaging that big playability is massive. You can't understate that. There's just no way to. But not there. Just you have Kobe Fleener, who is in the past 3 games, really, maybe 4 games, come out and started to produce in the way that we hoped. He's not on pace for 1,000 yards, but he is on pace for right around 800. He's got 317 yards now, 2 touchdowns. He's been a solid fill-in. Brandon Coleman, who we mentioned, I'm not sure if it's just, this is his potential last hurrah if he didn't get things together or what, but he has 15 receptions on 20 targets for 170 yards and a touchdown, and that's massive. And then the next 2 guys, you got Ingram and Cadet out of the backfield, both doing very well in receiving, and then Tommy Lee Lewis finishes out your receivers at 7 receptions on 9 targets for 76 yards. So as a whole, from backfield to tight end and wide receiver group, this is the best receiving set New Orleans has ever had, and it's really put Drew in a better position. He's able to not just get quicker plays out, but better looks out. And, that's just one of those, it's a win-win for everybody. Let me see if he has made it in. Nope, Brian is still not with us. That's fine. And, guys, don't forget, right at 7:30, we're going to have Patrick Elliott from the Houdat Warriors, and hopefully a little bit later this evening, John Hendricks. Now, of course, you all are welcome to call in. Please don't feel that it is the talking head night and you're just going to hear Deuce and Brian and John and Patrick and all these other guys yip-yapping about the Saints. We want you to call in as well, and that number is 504-533-8444. You're more than welcome to tune in, or you can just listen to us. That is okay, too. We don't mind either way. We want you to be with us. And I've also got the game going right here to the side. I'm excited. I'm looking. And my Cubbies just score the first run of the game. Oh man, I can't tell you how excited I've been about the Cubs. I know we're down 3-2, but man, if LeBron James can lead the Cavaliers from 3-1 down, so can Jake Arrieta and Chris Bryant and Rizzo. And Chris Bryant is the one that hit that home run in this first go around against Josh Tomlin. But yeah, I gotta have faith. Gotta have faith in the Saints fans. Y'all can surely empathize with me on that. So yeah, I mean,